G'day everybody and welcome to another Affinity Photo tutorial. This week I'm going to use this picture here of this gold robot to create a character for use in composition. So as I said, I'm going to start with this gold robot. Make sure I'm clicked on the layer of the gold robot and grab my selection brush tool. The first thing I'm going to do is zoom in using my Alt plus, and I'm going to make a selection of the hand. I'm using my right and left bracket keys just to resize that brush there, and I'll just make a quick selection of the hand here, holding my Alt down just to get rid of some of that selection and make my brush a little bit smaller, holding Alt just to get into that little area there. Okay, happy with that. So I'm just going to make sure and just go Command J to make a copy, and I'm going to call that hand. The other thing I'm going to do is get rid of those marching ants with my Command D. Back on my gold robot, just move down a little bit, and I'm also going to make a selection just of this leather part. Make my brush a little bit bigger, and just this little section here will make another selection. Again, holding Option down just to refine that selection a little bit, because I just want it to be just the middle section here. Okay, that's not too bad. So I'm on the gold robot, Command J again, and I'm just going to call that middle. So there we go, we've got that. Let's get rid of our marching ants, Command D, and then Command 0 to get back. So we've got these two parts here. I'm going to turn on this picture here now, which is just this picture of all this sort of robot-y parts. And before we do anything else, I'll grab my Eclipse marquee tool, and just on this little light here, I'm going to make a selection and just move that into place about there, just so I've just got that light. Command J, and I'm going to call that light. Get rid of the marching ants. And then on this picture, I'm going to grab this picture and I'm going to just clip it to this middle picture here. So I'm going to drag it down and make sure we've got a whole blue highlight here. And you can see now that that picture is just affecting where we did that middle cutout. So I'm going to grab my move tool here and just make that a little bit smaller and just move it to where you think sort of looks the best. I'm going to put it maybe about there, or maybe about there looks pretty good. Maybe a bit bigger. Yeah, I think I'll do that section there. So that is done now. Command 0. So we've got our middle section put in here. So the next picture I'll turn on is this picture here of this other robot. And I only want one section of this robot. So I'll grab my selection brush tool again, make my brush a tiny bit bigger and zoom in. And the only bit I want is this little piece here on this entire robot. So I'm just going to make a copy of that. Again, holding my Option key down just to refine it. About like that. Brush a little bit smaller, and then we'll get into some of these areas here. A couple of little areas up here just to refine. Don't need that bit there. Okay, so not too bad. Let's just fix that up a little bit. Okay, let's go Command J. Just so we've got that, we can turn that robot off now. Get rid of our marching ants, and we've just got this one piece here. Command 0 on our move tool. I'm going to move this into place just on her shoulder here. And I'm going to grab my mesh warp tool and just warp that a little bit into place there. That's not too bad, so let's just hit apply. So what we're going to do on that robot armor is add a HSL. So come down here to HSL, just clip that to that armor. What I'm going to do is just drag this hue shift slider till I get the same sort of color as the robot, sort of that golden color, about there. I think that looks pretty good, 180. And let's click off that. I'm going to make a couple of other copies, so Command J. On that one, we're going to go onto our move tool, arrange, and flip horizontal, and add that to this side as well. About there, you can always use your mesh warp tool just to warp that into place a little bit better. And that looks pretty good, so let's hit apply on that. I'm also going to use this armor, again, Command J, on my move tool, and I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. and put this on just on the thigh area. Again, on the mesh warp tool, let's just mesh that into place a little bit. That's okay, so let's hit apply. We'll copy that again, Command J. Make sure we're on our move tool and arrange, flip horizontal. Let's bring that over to this side. And again, we will have to just do a little bit of mesh warping here again, just to make that look a little bit better. About there looks okay. So let's hit apply on that. This little light that we've got here, just on our move tool, just move that out the way for now. We'll be using that a little bit later. Okay, we'll come back to this piece of armor here. And again, we'll go Command J. And I want to move this one down here. Make it a bit bigger. Again, on my mesh warp tool, just warp that into place a little bit. About there. Let's hit apply. Again, we will go Command J. Back on our move tool, arrange and flip horizontal. Let's move that over to this side. Okay. Again, let's do some mesh warping here, just to make that look a little bit better. About there, and hit apply. So we've got all of our armor in place. While I'm here, just with this middle bit here that we've got here in our middle, let's open that up. And I'm going to just grab that HSL that we did, Command J, make another copy. And I'm just going to put that onto that middle bit as well, just to make that a little bit golden as well. So the next thing I'm going to add to my picture is a cloak. So I've got this cloak that I've got here. I'm going to bring that all the way up to the top, just about there. Grab my move tool, and I'm just going to move the cloak over a little bit, about there. Grab my mesh warp tool. Let's zoom in a little bit. And now let's just warp that into place a little bit better. Maybe add just a little bit there to move that up a bit and over. And that's not looking too bad. Let's hit apply. So we've got our cloak in place. Let's just move it over a little bit more. So go back to our mesh warp tool and let's just warp that in the middle a little bit so we can see some of that. Maybe a little bit back just so we can see some of that armor there. Okay, let's hit apply on that. That looks a little bit better. Let's duplicate that cloak and let's move one all the way down at the back underneath our gold robot here. Make sure we're on our move tool, come to arrange and flip horizontal. Let's just move that cloak out so it looks like we've got some of that cloak at the back as well. Remember how we copied our hand? Let's move that copy of our hand all the way up to the top in front of all the armor. So now we've got the hand in front of the armor here. On my cloak here, you can see I've got a white line going all the way around after I copied it or cut it out. So that's not going to be too good. So let's click on our cloak, come up to select and selection from layer. So we've got it all highlighted. What we'll do is come up to select, grow and shrink. And I'm going to do -2 pixels and hit apply. I'm going to invert the selection and then edit, cut. Get rid of the marching ants, and I've got rid of that white line. Might just do that quickly to the back of the cloak as well. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is turn on this picture of the head of a female head here that I've got. This comes from the photo manipulation stock images that you can get if you sign up to their newsletter. There's like 220 different stock images that you can use. So on my move tool, I'm going to grab this. I've got it in front at the moment, and I'm just going to turn it the same way. Just line that up. What I want to do is just drop the opacity a little bit. I'm going to zoom in and just line it up. What I want to do is line up the two eyes here, this eye and this eye. Just want to make sure they are lined up, and the nose and the lips, and that doesn't look too bad. So let's turn that opacity back up. And then I'm going to grab the female head and bring it underneath the gold robot so we can't see it. If we do see a little bit of it, we'll grab our erase brush tool and we'll just erase the bits that we don't want to see. On my gold robot, I'm going to grab my freehand selection tool. I'm going to start around about here. I'm going to just make this cut here, down halfway through the lips, sort of around, a bit like that. What I'm going to do is go Command X to cut, Command V to paste that piece back in. So you see we've just got that little bit just by itself. I'm going to use the grow shrink again. So I'm going to come up to select, make sure we're just on that piece we cut out. Select, grow and shrink, and again I'm going to go -2 and apply. And then up to edit and just cut this time. Get rid of our marching ants. And that's just left us just with this very small outline here of the robot, part of the helmet here. So what we're going to do on that is put an FX. I'm going to bevel and emboss it. And I'm going to change this to inner and just drop the radius a little bit. And then change the direction a little bit as well. And then I'm going to 3D it as well and just drop that down a little bit. Just gives us that sort of look of where it's been cut out. Just where some of this on her head is missing a little bit here, I'm just going to go back onto the head here. Just grab my clone brush really quickly. Hold down Alt to make a selection and just put that bit back in. Maybe a little bit down here as well. Okay, that's not looking too bad. On top of our female face, I'm going to add a new pixel layer. I'm going to change the blend mode of that to overlay. Grab my brush. I want a nice soft brush. On my layers, then I'm going to change my color to a really bright green. Flow about 25%. Make my brush smaller. Over to the eye, let's zoom in a little bit more. Maybe a bit smaller brush here. And I'm just going to go around and make that eye nice and green. Yeah, it's about like that. Command 0. So I've got that nice green eye. Also on our female head here, I might just put a exposure. Just clip that to the female head here and just bring down the exposure, make it a bit brighter underneath. About like that, looks pretty good. Okay, remember the little star or the little light that we've got up here? Just going to bring that down. It's going to sort of be like a brooch on the cloak here. Maybe a bit smaller. And again on there, I'm going to put the FX and just put a bevel and emboss on that. Bring down the radius a little bit. And that looks pretty good. I'll just move it up a tiny bit to about there and maybe over a bit. There we go. That's not looking too bad. Okay, so now it's time to add our lightsaber. So let's just turn on our lightsaber here. On my lightsaber, I will put a mask. Grab that soft brush again. Let's get our colors back to default, hitting D on the keyboard. We want to be painting in black. Got about 25. I might just bump it up to 30. Again, let's zoom in on the hand here. So I want it to look like that this hand is holding the lightsaber. Make my brush a little bit bigger, and then I'll just take away some of that. All the way down to here. And then don't forget we can change over to white and then just put back some of those bits to make it look a little bit better. And on the little bit here as well. Okay, so we've got our lightsaber coming through the hand there. On top of my lightsaber, I'm going to add another pixel layer. I'm going to change the blend mode to glow. Let's make it a nice red color. A red saber. So on there, we've got our brush still on 30%. I'm going to make my brush a bit bigger, just about the size of the lightsaber, maybe a tiny little bit bigger. Click once, hold down my shift, make my brush a little bit smaller at the end, and then click again. Make my brush a bit bigger. Again, click once, holding shift down, right to the end, click again. Make my brush a little bit bigger again so I get some more of that glow. Hold my shift down right at the end and click again so we've got that glow there. Okay, so that is our character pretty much done. Okay, just notice we've got a little bit of the neck showing from the picture behind. So I'll just grab my erase brush tool really quickly, make my brush a little bit bigger. Make sure I'm on that picture of the female head here. Let's just get rid of that. Okay, what we can do now is let's just click on the top layer here. Let's go layer, merge visible. We've got one layer up the top here. Let's add some detail. Click on detailed and just let's bring some of these tone compression down a little bit of exposure, bit of vibrance, and let's hit apply. Then right underneath our character here, let's add a new pixel layer. Get our colors back to default by hitting D on our keyboard. Come over here to our flood fill tool and make that background behind black, just so we can see all the details in the character here. So there you go, everybody. That is the tutorial for this week, creating a character. You may have seen that I've used the character in one of my composites on Instagram. That will be my next tutorial. Some of the bits and pieces will be available on the Buy Me a Coffee site. You can also support my channel if you choose to while you are there. All the other photos that I've used will be linked below for you to use in your own composites. But until next time, I'm going to say to you, stay well, stay safe, and I'll see you in my next video.